How's everybody doing? Very well. Good. Okay. So, guys, the last session we had was on privatizing Social Security. I had a bunch of math up on the board. That would be a major change to a very popular program in the United States, and it's really tough to get done. But if people aren't educated on it, then they don't know what it is. And with news in this country, guys, you get like 5-second sound bites, and you don't really get into any depth on a lot of this stuff. So hopefully I'm giving you some depth to these. And I got two today that are really, hopefully get two done today, are really key in this election. I mean, these are campaign issues in this election. And we're going to start with school choice or school vouchers. Okay. Now, does anybody know how much it costs to educate one child for 1 year at Bishop Carroll High School? What's the full tuition? So if you are a foreign exchange student, okay, that's what you're going to pay. Okay, now, since my kids, my son graduated from my daughter is here, we are not a member of a parish because we're not Catholic. I pay tuition as well for her, but not full because I'm a full-time employee. So I pay what the parishes pay for you. Okay, but that's full tuition at our school. Okay. Now, as far as USD, okay, which will be public schools, unified school districts, any idea how much it costs to educate one student over at Northwest High School for 1 year? Well, I mean, you got to pay the teachers, you got to turn on the lights, you got to have. On average in the state of Kansas, okay, it's $13,000 a year. Okay. Now, you move to some communities like Washington, D.C., you go to Oakland, California, that number goes much higher. We live in Kansas where the cost of living is not that high. So teachers, although they make more money in the public schools, obviously, than we do in the private schools, they don't have to make, $75,000 a year, like where the cost of living in Hawaii is so high, or in California. Okay. So the cost comes down. Now, where does this money come from to educate our public school students? Taxes. Okay. What kind of taxes? Okay, you got state income taxes, right? So you got state income tax. Does the federal government give any money? Yeah, the federal government gives some money, about 8% comes from the federal government. Okay, and a lot of that is directed towards certain things like special ed or English as a second language, that sort of thing. So the federal government sends extra money for those sorts of things, okay? And then gives you a bunch of paperwork to fill out. Okay. The biggest funding mechanism, funder? Is that a word? Is it? I'm getting some head shakes, yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to go with funding mechanism, okay? Sounds better. Is property tax, which is local. So depending on what school district you live in, your property taxes are going to be higher. Okay, when you guys graduate, get a job, some of you get married and you have kids, you can buy your first house. Okay, the realtor, when you're looking for that house, is one of the things they're going to talk about is the school system. where that house is located. So where my house is located, my kids would go to Heights if they went to public school. I live northeast. Okay. So my neighbor's kid, they went to Heights. Okay. So depending on where you live, you think the property taxes are higher in Wichita or in Goddard or in Andover? We have a lot more poor people in Wichita, don't we? So you can't jack up the property taxes on the poor. You follow me? Okay. So if you live in Mays School District, which probably some of you do, right, or Goddard, then your property taxes are higher. And look at their schools compared to West High, South High, and so forth. You follow me? I mean, East High's been around forever, so is North High. I mean, those are really old schools, yes? Now, back about 10 years ago, they did a property tax increase. They asked the public schools in 259, they said, what is your greatest need besides classroom sizes? Like how many kids you have? And the number one thing they came back with was athletic facilities. And so that's where they did a $380 million tax abatement or property tax increase over like 10 years to build the new Southeast High School. And then they built the Northeast Magnet School up there. And then they built the new gyms at North, South, right? East, Heights. They got new gyms. They got turf football fields. They improved the softball and baseball fields. Okay. They put money in it, new tracks, right? And so forth. Okay. That doesn't come along very often in 259, guys, because it's hard to increase the taxes. And that goes up for a vote. I mean, that was voted on. Okay? And I live in Wichita, and I voted no. Okay. Now, I thought the sports, obviously the facilities needed improvement, but I didn't see the need for 2 new high schools. And in fact, I mean, Northeast Magnet is not really even being utilized. Much of the building is empty. Okay. Now, Southeast, where they built it, have any of you guys been down there? I mean, it's huge, right? From a distance, it looks like a freaking prison. I mean, if you're driving, I mean, it's just out there, it looks like a prison. Now, I've been on the inside, it's a really nice school, okay? But how far do those kids have to travel to go there? I mean, it's crazy, right? So there were some things I didn't like about it. I mean, obviously it was necessary to, the facilities were just old and dilapidated. So it's been a great benefit, okay? Now, so this is how you fund the schools, okay? Now, some public schools are pretty good, okay? Andover public schools are good. Mays public schools are good, Goddard, so forth, right? But when you get into the inner city, guys, the number one determinant on the success of students is going to be their parents and the socioeconomic you come from. That is shown to be the number one indicator of success. If you are born into a 2-parent household where both parents have college degrees, your chances of success in life go way up. If you are born into a single-parent household that lives in poverty, your chances of getting out of that situation are much more difficult. Okay, it's just statistics. Okay, and they bear out. Now, are there success stories out of that single child or single parent? Absolutely. Every day in this country, there's success stories. Okay, we want more of those success stories. I think as a society, we want more of that. And the best way to get kids out of a tough situation is education. That's what's going to get you out. Now, you may be a super talented athlete that might might be 1 in a million that gets to go play for a lot of money. Okay, or a talented rapper or musician that becomes, very wealthy that way. But those are so few and far between. So education is the way, all right? And the fact is, in many of our inner cities, the public education system is not working, is it? Is it working? It's not the teacher's fault. It's not the kid's fault always. It's not the parents' fault. It's just the system. Okay? Now, the system is driven by the teachers' unions. Okay? Teachers' unions have a lot of power. So the fact that 259 is not in school right now, mainly, I think you can blame that on the teachers' union because the teachers resisted going back into the building. If you work for the diocese, guys, and we're back in school, well, you don't have a choice. And if you don't come back to school, you have to buy out your contract. It's going to cost you a couple $1,000s because you signed a contract saying you were going to teach this year, and if you don't, you got to buy that out. Same thing in the public school. So the teachers didn't want to go back in, and so they said, all right, we're not going to do it. Now, 259 was not prepared for this. We were prepared, but we prepared like in the last 6 weeks before school started. You understand? Because this thing is always changing. You know what I mean? The COVID situation is always changing. And so we didn't want to, come up with a strict plan 4 months ago because it could change. So the last 6 weeks of the summer, we got together as a faculty, well, some of us. I was on that team along with the administration, the superintendent, and so forth, and we came up with some options. And then we thought about them, and we discussed it. We said, well, let's try this, and then we came up with this hybrid system. You may or may not like it. I don't know. We're here. I mean, there's a lot of things to learn. This is very hard on you. This is very hard on us. We have a lot of teachers that are struggling with this, okay? I mean, my head's spinning. It's like I've got something to do all the time. Okay. And so trying to get caught up on something else is hard. Okay. But the system is failing those inner city kids. And what do the Catholic schools do? What do we get right that can help fix what's happening in our inner city? I mean, my classroom's just like any other classroom. Just transfer me to Washington, D.C. or Detroit. I'm in a classroom with a group of kids in a public school. What's different here than there? Obviously, the socioeconomic situation of the kids in the classroom. One thing we can do with that is put you guys in uniforms. So you guys are wearing uniforms today. I can't tell whether you're rich or poor. I can't tell what your situation is because you're all wearing the same thing, right? Now, I might be able to tell whether you showered or not if I walk by you and smell you, okay? With little kids, you get that sometimes. Most of you guys are pretty good about hygiene. Okay. But you understand what I'm saying. So you take that off, and the fact that what you're wearing is, modest, okay? Where if you go over to Northwest, guys, and it's warm outside, you're going to get some short shorts, you're going to get some short tops, right? And that can be distracting to people. I'm not kidding. You know what I mean? Because I got friends that teach over there like, I can't believe what they're wearing at school. You know what I'm saying? Now, that's freedom for you, and you're like, man, I hate these uniforms. But the great thing about these uniforms is you don't have to think about what I'm going to wear today, which is cheaper too. I mean, I know it's expensive up front. You got to buy these uniforms, but in the long run, you don't have to buy all these clothes for school. Okay. All right. What else is different? Now, if I have a problem with one of you guys in my class, like you guys won't shut up, that's been a real problem this year. I mean, holy cow, I can't get my kids to stop talking. It's unbelievable. You guys are driving me crazy. Would you shut up? I'm trying to teach here. "22 years in this building. 2 times I've had to get administration involved with a student in my classroom. 2 times. Now, I'm a male teacher, and I'm kind of loud, and I don't know. I don't know if the goatee scares people or not, but I just don't have any problems with it. And I know we've had some teachers that have, okay, like Sister Mary Dolores, I remember her first year, the kids were jerks. So she had some kids being jerks, okay? So I went into her classroom and I ripped them. What hour? I'm coming in, okay? You gonna be disrespectful to a sister? What the heck's wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? Come on. Anyhow, discipline. If my buddy Tom over at Northwest kicks a kid out of school, out of the classroom, sends him down to the office, they're going to send him back and say, you need to deal with that. If I kick you out of the classroom, send you to the office, you're going to have to deal with Mr. Schuckman, and then you're going to have to talk to your priest. There's accountability. There's high expectations here. There's the demerit system, which for a lot of you, I mean, for some kids, they don't care. For some of you are like, man, I don't want to get a demerit. I know my daughter's like that. She don't want to get a demerit. Okay? It's a freaking mark on a piece of paper. But that bothers some of you, and that's fine. Okay? But, yeah.
Except they'll get in huge trouble at home.
Yeah.
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 That applies to me.
Yes.
I don't know about others.
So, guys, here's the thing. It's your families. Okay, and a lot of kids, you don't get to choose who you're born into. You don't get to choose who your parents are. Right? Now, some of you might be wishing you had different parents. I had two parents. They were both alcoholics. They both smoked. And I wouldn't trade them for the world. Okay? But that was mild compared to what some kids have to go through with their parents. And so it's not their fault. It's not the kid's fault. So we are now feeding our kids at school for breakfast and lunch. So the government has taken over. Remember when we talked about welfare, guys? The government took over being daddy. And now the government's feeding the kids. Well, what's left for parents to do? Okay, so the schools have to be a place where if they're coming in there, we've got to be able to teach them not just school reading and writing, but we have to teach them other things. Now, you can't teach morality because you can't teach God. So, whoa, what happens to society? So this is something that the current Secretary of Education at the federal level, her name's Betsy DeVos, who doesn't have a lot of experience in education. So a lot of people don't like her, especially the teachers unions. Okay? But she supports this idea. And President Trump supports this idea. So that's why it's a campaign issue. He's bringing it up on the campaign trail, okay, of school choice. Now, what we're going to do here is give a voucher for $13,000. So say your student is stuck in a poor performing public school in 259. You can give that kid a voucher, the parents a voucher for $13,000, and they can take that voucher to say they're at South High, okay? You're at South. You can go to Northwest. You can take that to Goddard. You can take that to Bishop Carroll. You can take that to Collegiate. Now, $13,000 isn't going to get you into Collegiate. You're going to need a few more. But if you really want, you got a really bright kid and you want to get them into Collegiate, you got $13,000 down, maybe $3 to go. Okay. For Carroll, that covers the cost of your education here. Now, would you guys take 100 students from South High into Bishop Carroll High School? Even if they weren't Catholic?
As long as they respected everything, yeah.
They'd have to go to Mass. They'd have to take the 4 years of religion, right? What does God teach us to do? Share the good news. Spread the gospel. right? What better way to do it? And really where you want to get these kids is into St. Francis and C's, into the other feeder schools, right? When they're little. So you can train them up early. Okay? Get them early. Give them some Jesus. Yeah. Give them some Jesus. Now, yeah, Sam. Well, what is a cult? What is a cult?
No comment.
No, is that, what's the definition of a cult?
It's a religious group of people, and it usually has a negative connotation because.
It does.
Right.
It's a new religion would be a cult, like, you know, somebody creates a new religion, be a cult. Okay. It is cultish. I mean, this is a community. This is a Catholic faith. It's billions of people around the world that share the same religious views. Okay? And it works as an education. Yes? If you live in Louisiana, where there's a lot of Catholics, right? But you got to pay tuition. You know what I'm saying? I got Catholic relatives in Columbus, Ohio, and they send their kids to Catholic schools. It's like $18,000 a year. Okay? But they do it because the public schools, it's just not a good learning environment. And again, guys, there's a lot of great teachers in the public schools. There really are. I mean, at South High, I know two people in the English department. One of them used to teach here. She had to leave because she had to make more money. Okay? And the other one dated one of my friends, and she's fantastic. And I'm like, South High's got some good English teachers. Okay? So it's not necessarily the teacher's fault, it's the system. Okay? Now, teachers unions hate this. Okay? Because what's going to happen, and I'm not trying to pick on South High here, okay? But I had a friend that used to be the building sub there, and he said, man, it's tough. Okay? If you get kicked out of Heights, he said they send you to South. You get kicked out of Southeast, they send you to South. Okay? So it might be like one of the last resort schools. Okay? So let's say you give every student, in Florida, this is how they do it. If the school is failing, they go on probation. If after 2 years they don't show improvement, they shut down the school and they give every kid in that school a voucher. That's what the state of Florida does. They did that under Governor Jeb Bush. Okay? And so that gets that, I mean, some people call it a civil rights issue. Education is a civil rights issue that you should be guaranteed a good public education. And if those schools aren't providing it, then you let them out of that situation. Okay? Now, some people would have a problem with us bringing in 100 heathens that aren't Catholic. Okay? Seriously, guys, Lily, my daughter, last year was one of 5 non-Catholics in this school. 5. Okay? This year it may be lower than, it depends on the foreign exchange students and so forth, but Connor Betts that graduated last year, he was a non-Catholic. Okay, so now Capen's different. They have quite a few more non-Catholics than us. Okay, but this that would bother some people. Okay, I say get over it personally, but okay. Now, what about government money coming to the church? Is that okay? Remember the Establishment Clause? Yeah.
Under the establishment clause, it would be okay. I think the church would be technically fine with it.
Yeah. Church take the money. Yeah.
The government can't really give it.
Okay, so the government gives it to the parents. Now, the money, tax dollars originate with the parents, right? And then goes to the government, they give it back to the parents, they give it to the church. This passed the Supreme Court in Cleveland, Ohio. They were running some voucher systems and allowing the school kids to go to Catholic schools with voucher money. And so, of course, somebody sued. And the Supreme Court said, no, this is okay. Okay, so it does pass that, which means the government can't control what we're doing in here just because we're taking voucher money. Okay, yeah.
This is good. Let's do it.
Hang on. Let's say half the students at South High leave. take that voucher and go somewhere else, okay? What's going to happen to the teachers at South High?
They're gonna get dropped.
They're going to get laid off. Okay, some of them. Now, the way the union set this up is last in, first out. So when there's teacher layoffs, the young teachers get laid off, the old teachers get protection. You follow me? Now, a lot of times, some of your younger teachers, after a year or so, become your best teachers. You know what I mean? They're the ones that just came out of school, they're excited, they're hungry, they want to teach. Okay? You have to judge here. I don't, we have some really great teachers in this building, and we have some that are not so good. You know who they are. I know who they are. My students went through here. I know. Okay? It's hard to find teachers to work for this pay. It's hard to find good ones. That's why we have double dippers. We have a few in the building that retired from the public schools and now are double dipping, getting retirement from there and getting money here. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. Okay? Coach Dominic is one of those guys. I mean, he was in 30 plus years in the public schools. He's collecting money from them right now and getting paid here. Mr. Kennedy. And then we got a couple new ones this year from Mays School District. Okay? So nothing wrong with that. But what those teachers are going to get laid off. Now, if principals could, what they could do at South is get rid of the bad teachers. Right? Already your school is improved. So what you're doing is you're competing for these vouchers. Every school is competing for these. The more kids that show up at your building because you have a great school, the more money you get. So it becomes competition. Any guys ever play tennis? You've all played tennis in PE, right? Most of you are bad at tennis. Okay? I grew up playing, so I'm pretty good. But have you ever noticed when you play with somebody that's actually decent and you hit the ball back and forth, you tend to play better? Or when I play golf with somebody that's good at golf, like Mr. Berger, okay? I see him hit fairway, see him hit green, and I'm like, oh man, I can do that. I see it. I visualize it. I want to compete. Guys, competition breeds excellence. Okay? When you play somebody that's crappy, what happens to your game? Your game goes down. When you're playing somebody that's good, your game comes up. So now some people say, well, public schools isn't really the place for competition. Sam, there's going to be a competition for you, man. Who's going to get Sam in their college? Which college is going to get Sam?
I don't know yet, but there's 3 of them. There's 2 of them offering.
Right. Right now, right? They're saying, hey, you made that thing, you made that list. Hey, you. Yeah, we want you. Right? Same thing with athletes, right? You have really good athletes, there's competition to get kids on campus. The more kids you have on campus, the more talented kids you have, the better for your university. Now, let's say Bill Self retires from KU. Basketball, he's the basketball coach at KU. They're great, right? I'm not a KU fan. I'm just saying they're great. They're always great. Okay. Bill Self retires and says, you know what? I'm just going to stay. I'm going to go coach basketball at Northwest. You don't even have to pay me. I'm just doing it as a hobby. You think there's going to be kids using vouchers that are good at basketball to go to Northwest? Uh-huh. Okay. And then Robert De Niro, you know who that? He's a famous actor. Okay. He says, I'm going to retire from acting, and I'm going to get back to the community. I'm going to go teach theater at West High. You have kids that are interested in acting that want to go learn from Robert De Niro. They're going to use those vouchers to go there. So you're going to have super teams, super athletic teams. They're going to want to go play for those coaches and stuff like that. Some people don't like that. It's like Bishop Miege, right? They recruit. Okay, we don't. I'm still waiting for that 90-mile-an-hour guy to walk in the door. Been here 22 years. I have one guy throw me 90 miles an hour. I tell people that, like, really? Just one? Yeah, that's it, man. Just one guy. His name's Scott Engler. He's an A ball with the Texas Rangers. He's not in the major leagues. He's down there in Arizona right now staying in shape just in case the Rangers need him. Scotty, he was a complete mess here. Teachers hated it. His freshman and sophomore year, then he grew up. The teachers loved him. Okay, great kid. Scotty, you got a guy, pro baseball here. Be careful, okay? We got one in the NFL, right? Got one, okay? I think that's it. Nobody in the NBA, okay? So it's hard, you know what I mean? Anyhow. So that's one of the negative things that people talk about this. Okay, I'm trying to give you both sides of this. Yeah, so some schools may end up closing, but the thing is, South High's already improved. They got rid of the bad teachers. Now they can't do that because of the unions. It'd be nice in a perfect world you could get rid of the bad ones, and now all of a sudden you got a pretty good school. Okay, because the teaching situation improved. Okay, there are bad public school teachers. There are bad Catholic school teachers. Okay, and I'm not blaming teachers on this, but I will say this: 259 is not in session because I think I already said this, because they were not ready. Okay, and the unions said we're not putting our teachers in that situation. Okay, so all right. This for Washington, D.C. Now I'm gonna get a little political here, okay? You ask an inner city African-American parent, if you could take your kid out of the current school they're in Washington, D.C. or Detroit or Oakland, California, or you name it. And those African-American parents are gonna be like, yes, please. Can I send my kid to a charter school? Can I send my kid to a private school? They would say, yes, I want to jump on that. But the politicians that claim to represent those same people, which is, you know which party? The Democratic Party is opposed to this because teachers' unions give tens of millions of dollars to help Democrats get elected. And so they're in bed with the teachers' unions. And so the Democratic Party that says they represent the inner city African American or Latino is against this idea. There's no better way to improve a child's life than to give them a great education. Okay? But it does come with some consequences. Now, we can't, if we were to do this in the state of Kansas, like universal vouchers, there are more than 10,000 private school students in this state. We got 1,100 here. Cape in there, you're at 2,000. You got all the feeder schools. You got Trinity. You got collegiate. You got independent school. You got all the private schools up in Kansas City area. You got more than 10,000 students that are not using this $13,000 a year. They're paying for it, but they're not using it, just like you guys, right? You're paying property taxes. You're just not using it. We saved the state of Kansas $130 million a year by not sending you guys to public schools. How about a little bit of gratitude for the private school? Saving the state a lot of money. So if we did this universally and gave all you guys vouchers too, we'd have to raise $130 million in taxes. Now, let's say we did that, and you guys continued to tithe, and we get this. We need a new auditorium. You got it. I need lights on the baseball field, please. Got it. Like, within 2 years, you've got enough money to do everything you want to do to this building. Finish those dang classrooms at the end of the hallway. So somebody's not teaching in my classroom during my plan period. Or the new teachers that get to, they get a cart. That's awful. Okay, so, hey, there are consequences with this. You decide. Okay, good? All right. Guys, healthcare. Now, this is a campaign issue, okay? You guys all heard of Obamacare. Who was vice president when Obamacare was passed? Joe Biden. Okay, he's running for president. Biden has come out against Medicare for all. Now, his running mate, Kamala Harris, is all about it. And there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party that are all about this idea. Okay? Yes.
And it is the idea that Biden will die before the end of his year.
Will die anytime in the first term. Okay? Between now and the first term. Or loses faculties where he can't, you know. All right. What you need to understand about healthcare, Medicare for all would be what's called a single payer system or universal. Okay? Single payer. Who's the single payer? Who pays for healthcare? The government. One entity pays for everything. They do this in Britain. They do this in France. They do this in Canada. Okay? Now, this has been scored as far as how much it would cost to insure 330 million people. Over 10 years. You could double everyone's taxes right now, and you wouldn't have enough money to pay for it. Okay? Now, what Obamacare did was try and create a system where more people were paying in, okay, and buying insurance. This is where you get what's called the individual mandate. Now, you guys pay taxes, and you guys that have worked, you've paid taxes, but you get that money back, right? Except for your Social Security. We talked about this, right? You don't put that 6.2, that goes in, okay? The rest you get back because you're poor. Guys, 48% of Americans pay 0 federal income tax. %. They get it back. It's a working poor, or those that don't work, those that don't have jobs. Okay. Now, anybody that works pays into Social Security. This is what I'm talking about, federal income tax here. Okay. Social Security money is already allocated. It goes from my check to grandma right now. Okay, it's already allocated. So the 52% of us. See, in Britain, in France, in Belgium, in Canada, taxes are much higher. And not only do the 52% of people in these countries pay taxes, everybody pays taxes. The poor pay taxes. Everybody's invested in the system. There's no way they can get it even close to work unless everybody's paying taxes. Okay? So you would have to increase taxes on these people, which pay none. That means you. Now, under Obamacare, the individual mandate said when you hit 27 years old, you have to buy insurance, or you pay a fine or a tax. Okay. Originally, when Obama sold this to us, it was a fine. That's unconstitutional. You can't fine somebody in the United States for not buying something, but they sure as hell can taxes. Okay, so they had to change it to a tax. Okay, otherwise it would have been unconstitutional. So, how many people between the ages of 27 and 35 get heart disease, which is the #1 killer in this country? Not very many. How many people between the ages of 27 and 35 get cancer? Not very many. But the government under Obamacare wanted these people to start buying insurance because a lot of people that can afford it don't buy it because it's so damn expensive. They're like, I'm not going to get that sick. If I get a cold, I'll go and I'll pay the doctor. That's the way it used to be. You had a relationship with your doctor, but because of medical advances, any guys ever had an MRI? Raise your hand if you had an MRI. You like had an injury? Soccer or something?
No, it was something with my stomach.
Okay. How long between the doctor ordering the MRI and you getting the MRI did that take? Do you remember? Not very long. Okay. In Canada, you might have to wait 6 months because they don't have enough MRI machines. In Kansas, if you have enough money, you can go buy an MRI machine, get a building up on North Ridge Road. MRIs are us. Pass out your business card to all the doctors. Say, hey, if you got anybody who needs an MRI, send them up to us. We'll get them taken care of. We have more MRI machines in Kansas than they do in all of Canada. Okay? It's a free market. Healthcare is expensive here. Health insurance is expensive. Okay? Most people get it through their employer. We have 46 million. When they passed Obamacare, we had 46 million people that did not have health insurance. Now, if you're poor, you qualify for Medicaid. Your children qualify for Medicaid. And if you're poor and old, you qualify for Medicare. If you're old and wealthy, you don't qualify for Medicare. You got to buy into it. So my dad paid, Medicare was created in 1964. My dad paid into it the whole time until he needed it when he was 72. And then we found out he didn't qualify. They wanted us to sell his house. They wanted to sell everything, all of his assets, go broke, and then he would qualify, even though he paid into it the whole time. That really pissed me off. So you got to learn how to work the system, people. If you can get your loved one, your grandparent, into the hospital and then back into a nursing home, Medicare will pick up the next 100 days of the nursing home. Guys, it's $5,000 a month to be in a nursing home. $5,000 a month. So, you go to the doctor and say, hey, something's not right with that. Can we get him admitted to the hospital? Get him admitted to the hospital, check him out, okay, file the paperwork, Medicare picks up the next 100 days. That's $15,000. I guarantee you my dad put in way more than $15,000 into Medicare. Yeah. Okay. Medicare for all would mean all 330 million people would get free health care. Everybody would be covered. That's the good part of Medicare for all. It's just everything else that comes with it after that. Like, if healthcare is free, are more people going to go to the doctor? I don't know if you ever have to do this, like set up a doctor's appointment, and they look at the calendar, and they say, we can get you in 6 weeks. Now everybody goes for free. Do we have enough doctors? So you're going to have to wait for healthcare. The other thing is they're going to run out of money. So an 80-year-old who's already surpassed life expectancy needs hip replacement surgery, and you got a 15-year-old that has a stomach problem, and we've got to get them in. But we don't have enough money for both. Who's going to be denied care? You're going to have government bureaucrats deciding who gets care and who doesn't. Now, we have that now with insurance companies, where sometimes insurance companies don't cover stuff. Like when my son's girlfriend's parents went to get the COVID test, my insurance paid for mine, but they had to pay $108 each for their 3. The insurance didn't cover it. Okay, so we have that kind of now with certain insurance companies. Okay. But guys, they're going to get that 80-year-old some morphine to keep you comfortable while you die at home. They're going to run out of money. It's called rationing care, which is happening in Canada and Britain and France and Belgium. In France, they allow you to get private insurance as well. So anybody that can does, because they pay more to the doctors than the government does. Yeah. I think Germany does too. Yeah. But a lot of them allow the private insurance because Medicare doesn't pay the doctors as much as the insurance company. So you have doctors in this country that won't take Medicare patients or Medicaid patients because they can't make a living on what they're reimbursing them. So it's an interesting thing you need to educate yourself on. We love free college. We love free healthcare. What are the consequences of that? You got to look into it, okay? See you guys.